Hi everyone, Radical Dreamer here, and welcome to the Postal Code Unknown podcast for Sunday, July 23rd of 2017. Moving from yesterday's episode where we were talking about the kindness of strangers or connecting with somebody from another country even when you don't really share the same language very well, I wanted to share another story from some of the travels that I did in Russia. I did the Trans-Siberian Railway. My initial sort of trip across the world, I had basically pieced things together where I knew I wanted to do that pilgrimage in Spain, and the point was to get starting in Europe and find my way across overland by taking the rail over back down towards Japan before going home. So that was originally when I was thinking about this entire idea. That was basically the whole trip. Wasn't sure whether or not I was going to keep going afterwards. As you can see, I have kept going, but this was something that was really special. Just in general, the whole trip, for a number of reasons, and I think I've talked to a few people about this in the past, and I think right now, especially with the sort of political climate between Russia and the United States being a little bit tricky, it can be sort of like a hot button issue to talk about. I know that. It's difficult to say, but at the same time, I do want to say, regardless of the political situation or complications with whatever's going on, everyone personally that I met in Russia when I spent my time there for about 2 weeks was wonderful to me. And I think that something that was important for me, I think this was, again, one of the only things that I had really planned ahead of time when I had left. Again, one, I wanted to sort of do a long distance train travel. I've always sort of romanticized that from reading things like Murder on the Orient Express and a few other things when I was a kid. But more importantly is that I think there's always been some sort of a bit of tension between, I grew up during the Cold War, very tail end of it, and there had been this idea of Russian animosity, and there's this idea that you see things in movies and television and film, and yet it's not the same as seeing the thing in real life. So it was really important for me to be able to go visit a country like Russia and see things with my own eyes. So what I have to share with you guys today from Russia is a cup that I got on the Trans-Siberian Railway. So you can see it's sort of like blue, sort of ceramic. There's a seal, a Baikal seal, which I'll talk about in a minute. It looks like a hawk and some fish and a tree and a bird. And it's a beautiful scene that sort of just depicts some of the scenery that you'd see along sort of more likely than not around the Siberian area, which ended up being one of my favorite parts of Russia by far, mostly just because I was able to identify it, and that's where this particular story takes place. So I did it in 3 shifts, from Moscow to Ekaterinburg, from Ekaterinburg to Irkutsk, and from Irkutsk to Vladivostok, which is sort of like as far east as you can go along the railway. And this particular story that I'd like to share today takes place outside of Irkutsk, where I did a stop near Lake Baikal, which is one of the largest freshwater lakes in the world, where the Baikal seals are. They're these cute little seals that are only found in that region, as well as a sort of fish called an omol that they sort of have there as well. So one of the things that I wasn't really sort of familiar with was sort of the especially in that region, sort of the shamanistic history and some of the really cool sort of it's just not something that I'd really interacted with in the past. Is sort of how the migration of people or Russian people over to the Siberian region as sort of political outcasts and all kinds of things that was really fascinating. But I think more than anything else, sort of at the time I had a guide that had shared with me basically sort of some stories from where she grew up in sort of the region itself, and sort of showed me around Irkutsk and the Lake Baikal region. But there was a moment sort of where we went to a little market near sort of the town in Lake Baikal that I was staying, and picked up some of these smoked fish, these amol, that you can only get there. and sort of went up to the top of this hill just to sit and eat this fish. And sort of like, I thought like it was just, and I've written about this in the past, like there's something incredible about meeting people when you're traveling around and you're in this place that is so far removed from where you're from. Not necessarily, I mean, more sort of like in the sense that it's a distance, not necessarily that we have completely different experiences, but I thought that the ability to sort of sit there, you know, and share this fish with someone from somewhere that was so completely different from where I had grown up, was incredible, and was sort of like the type of experience that affects me in a way that you know, tells me this is why I travel. I travel to be able to have these types of experiences with people that I wouldn't otherwise meet. To share, you know, fish or a story or an experience with someone that knows something that I do not. It's one of my favorite ways to learn. So I hope you enjoyed that little story, as well as sort of like this very brief introduction to sort of like this Trans-Siberian Railway that I took. It was a really amazing experience that I'd like to return to again in the future and talk about a little bit more. I will say, sort of just leaving off on that thought about the railway itself, it is something that I'd probably recommend doing with someone else. It was a little bit difficult for me, just because of the language barrier and how long you are on that train. It's something that I'd probably recommend strongly going with some friends or sort of a group if you can, but that shouldn't discourage you entirely from doing a solo trip through Russia. It's just something that out of my personal experience, I think that it would probably be better done with others. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Take care. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to see more of what I've been doing outside of these videos, you can see more at theradicaldreamer.com, where I've got articles and photographs with travel advice and stories that aren't just in a video format. You can follow me on Twitter at @OneRadicalDreamer or on Instagram at @ARadicalDreamer if that's something that you're more interested in. If you're interested in supporting me, I do have a Patreon page up as well, which you can find at patreon.com/TheRadicalDreamer. And that's a way for as little as $1 a month you can help support me get better equipment and do more videos of this type and make a whole bunch more cool stuff to share with you in the future. And last but not least, if you like what you've been seeing on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and send a couple comments. I'd be happy to answer more questions in future episodes of the podcast. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you. Take care.